All right, guys, welcome back to the Game Trail Podcast. It's a sunny Wednesday morning when I'm recording this here in Cedar City. It's been unusually warm. So the last week, I would say it's been high 70s, low 80s, which is smoking hot for this time of year. I was in Vegas last Tuesday, and it was over 90. So it feels awful warm for this time of year, but I am enjoying the sunshine. It's been really nice that I've been able to get out and shoot a bunch of arrows in the morning. I'm prepping for the Vegas archery shoot, which is coming up this weekend. I actually leave tomorrow, so I'll be in Vegas working tomorrow. And then I got to go check in, get registered. I'm already registered, but I do need to do the check-in. I did get my line time. So my first line time on Friday is going to be 7 a.m., which is awful early. I am used to getting up here at home and shooting pretty early, so I'm hoping that plays well for me. With the time difference between here in Cedar City and Vegas, it should be right about time when I'm used to shooting in the morning. So hopefully that bodes well for me. It's been going good as far as practice goes. I still get the random flyers. So it's like those arrows that I don't know if I get bored or I just lose focus, or I try to force them. Maybe, I'm getting a little long in the hold, and I know it's kind of breaking down. I'm not aiming as well as I need to be, but I kind of force it anyway. The hard part with those, and if you guys are listening, maybe you guys struggle with this too, but I would say there's 50% of the time, maybe more, when you get long in your hold, it feels like you can force that arrow. And I would say about half the time, you force it into the 10 ring. And I know that I shouldn't. I know that I should just let down and start over, get a more solid aim and a better execution in the back half, and just be more sure that I'm going to shoot middle and hit an X or a 10. But man, it just is so tempting to try to force that arrow and, split the difference. Hope for it. Hope for a 10, which I've always said hope is not a strategy to do well at anything. But so those are kind of the issues I'm having. It's been kind of fun. I've been playing a lot with releases and what seems to work. I've been shooting a hinge mostly. I did do some rounds last week, I want to say, with the thumb button. So shooting that new thumb button from UltraView. And man, when I shoot that thing consistently, like when I can get on the trigger and I'm flowing and I'm focused, man, that thing shoots so good. And some of the better scores I've actually shot with that. But it feels like when it goes south, it really goes south. And it's not really like a target panic issue. It doesn't feel like I'm punching it per se, but it just feels like I can't get that thing to go off. And it feels like my misses are bigger than they are with the hinge, even though my hinge, it does feel like it floats a little bit more. And it feels like my arrows are not quite as middle as they ought to be, or as they are with the thumb button. So I'm still debating on, which release I'm going to end up shooting. I'll probably end up shooting the hinge because it's like Old Faithful. I can go back to it and kind of anchor in and let it float and execute a shot. And I do shoot pretty well with it. I know people have asked scores like, oh, what are your scores looking like? I really am 100% being honest that I'm not really down there to win anything. I'm not that competitive. I used to be really competitive, and I don't like myself when I get ultra competitive. I'm not there to really compete with anybody other than myself. I just want to improve upon last year. It might not be the right frame of mind to go into it with, but that's where I'm at. I'm just trying to beat myself last year, and I'm also trying to improve on last year's score. I didn't feel like I had a very good showing last year, so I'm trying to improve on that and, just do better. And it is good for me. Shooting indoor, which I actually have not shot an indoor round yet. Everything that I've shot at a Vegas face has been outside, which has been nice because the weather's been good. But it'll be interesting to see how the lighting is, and, being able to, be put on a line with a bunch of different people, and, the whole battle of the nerves. But yeah, score wise, I'm averaging probably between like a 290 and a 293. I'm somewhere in that neighborhood. I've shot some 288s, shot a 286 the other day. this morning, I shot a 295, which is really good for me, but I'm somewhere in that neighborhood. And really my goal is to go down there and kind of hit my averages. So if I shoot a 290, that's kind of what I'm hoping for. There's a bunch of people that shoot a heck of a lot better than me and good on them. That's awesome, but that's kind of where I'm at. And, it's been really good for me. I've learned things about my shot. I've learned a lot about my draw length. I've learned a lot about D-loop length. I've learned a lot about releases and kind of what works better for me. One of the other podcasts that I've done in the past, I remember asking Paige, like, how do you build a bow, or how are you building your equipment to help you in a tournament or in a situation where your nerves are really high? And I can't honestly even give you the answer that she gave me, but the point I want to make is I'm starting to learn that. And I think you really only learn that from shooting with intent and, for a reason of trying to shoot a score, trying to do a competition like Vegas, trying to improve upon your scores, kind of really focusing on each individual arrow and trying to execute a good shot. You really only, at least for me, I really only have learned like what happens when I start to put a little pressure on myself, what happens when I'm shooting really good and I'm trying to maintain that. I want to up my score. I want to keep it clean, and I get a little nervous. What works in those situations in terms of draw length, release, even aim and anchoring and kind of the way my body feels. I'm learning a lot about feel. I'm learning a lot about muscle memory. So in that regard, it's been really good. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully I shoot good. Hopefully I shoot kind of, up to where I want to. That's the goal. Ultimately I want to go down, have a good time, shoot some arrows, see some friends, and just push myself, try to challenge myself. I really do think it helped me last year, and I think it's going to help me again this year. So it's kind of update on Vegas. I think Saturday, I think I have an afternoon line time. And then obviously after Friday and Saturday, they're going to flight you based on your scores. So you'll be shooting among a group of peers that have shot similar scores. And at that stage, you are kind of competing for, a place among your flight, and you can win some money. I think last year I won, I want to say it was like $100 or $65. I can't even remember. I actually don't even know if I cashed that check. It might be sitting upstairs in my, my little mail cubby, but it was fun. Won a little money. Looking forward to it. It'll be a good weekend. This week's podcast is going to be a solo podcast. I try to do one of these solo podcasts every other one. I get feedback from people that they kind of like these solo podcasts, even though I don't necessarily love them, but I appreciate that people do seem to enjoy them. So I'm going to do a solo podcast today, and the topic I'm going to tackle is going to be backpacks. So I want to run through kind of backpack selection. I want to talk about some of the individual brands and the frames that we carry. So I'll talk about, Mystery Ranch, Stone Glacier, Initial Ascent, Kafaru. I won't talk about some of the other brands like an EXO. I get questions about EXO packs quite often. Eberly stock, I don't have an Eberly stock pack. I don't have an EXO pack. EXO is probably the one major brand that I have not owned in the past. So I can't really speak from a place where I've had that thing loaded up and I spent multi-day trips with an EXO pack on my back. I will say everything that I've heard about their packs has been really good. I have a lot of friends that use those packs and swear by them and absolutely love them. I don't have a bad thing to say about them. I think they make an awesome product. I just can't speak to it because I've never used it. So take that with a grain of salt. I do think we carry a lot of packs that are good, solid packs that are great options. I've used the Stone Glacier extensively. I've used Kafaru a lot. I've used Mystery Ranch packs in the past, so I can speak about those. I've used Initial Ascent. I bought one of those and I've used it. So I think I can give you at least my opinion and my take. Pack frames, they're subjective. They're a lot like a boot, to be honest. What works for somebody may not work for somebody else. Different people have different preferences in packs. I can talk about the differences between those, between the frames, between the bag options. I can talk about sizing. I can talk about bag capacity, organization, the way the pack should fit. I can talk about all those, which I plan to today. But yeah, I would ultimately, and I'll kind of conclude with this at the end of the podcast, I think you ought to, if you can, obviously this is not an option for a lot of people. If you live in the Midwest or the East Coast, you may not be able to go to a shop and try, a pack from Stone Glacier, a pack from Kafaru, a Mystery Ranch. You may just not have those options available to you to go in and try. But if you can, if you find yourself in Vegas, stop by the Go Hunt headquarters there, grab those packs and try them on. It's like buying a bow. Matthews, a Hoyt, Bowtech, whatever it might be. Different people like different things for different reasons. They like the way that they feel, or they shoot, or they draw. Same thing with packs. People just like different packs for whatever reason. So I can give you some ideas on what I think, which I'm planning on doing today's podcast. If you can't get out and try those on, you can take my thoughts and my opinions, and maybe that'll help you out. And you can always reach out to me if you have specific questions after this podcast. So with that, before I dive in and kind of tackle the whole pack discussion, I should hit you with a promo. So you can use the promo code Game Trail. That's just GAMETRAIL. You can use that. If you want to sign up for Go Hunt Insider account, you're going to get $50 back in the Go Hunt Gear Shop, which is $50 that you can use towards the purchase of any gear that you want in the shop, including a new backpack or accessories for your backpack. So it's kind of a killer deal. We do have a bunch of draws that are open right now. We had Brandon Evans, who is our head of research here at Go Hunt. He does a lot of the draw odds and, the building out of unit profiles and the harvest statistics. He and his team do that. I was running through the upcoming draw deadlines that are approaching, and you've got Montana on the 1st, which I don't know that if this will go out before then or not, but that one will be close. You've got April 7th, which is Colorado. That's approaching. That's a big one. It's one of the major states in the West that people are applying for, both for deer and elk. Even antelope, man. When we talked to Brandon, he said, yeah, I'm not really super stoked on antelope in Colorado. And I think it's just because I've become an antelope nut that I put antelope in Colorado on the map, for me anyway. Not on the map. That was didn't mean that, but I've put it on my list of tags and states that I want to hunt for antelope, because I just love hunting antelope, and it's another opportunity to get a tag and go hunting. Killed an antelope in Colorado. It's probably been 5 or 6 years ago at this point, but it was a fun hunt. So I'm never going to turn down the opportunity to try draw an antelope tag. Other states that are approaching, Utah's approaching. You got Wyoming deer and antelope, which is in May. You got Nevada, which is still approaching. Idaho, the controlled draw for antelope, deer, and elk, that's still approaching. There's still a lot of draws coming up. So I guess what I'm saying is now's a great time to dig in, do your research, and get an insider account if you don't have one. And really, this is the time frame. So from like now until June, this is the time frame when you need to do the research. You need to really dive in and make sure that you have a permit or 2 or 3 to get a chance to go hunting this fall. This is where you kind of pay your dues and make sure that you get a chance to get out and go use your gear and have a good time in the fall. So sign up with that promo code Game Trail. Also, shout out to Matthews Archery. As I sit here, I'm looking over at my ARC 34 staring at me. I got to do a couple things with it before I leave for Vegas tomorrow. I am shooting my honey bow in Vegas, so it's the exact setup pretty much, other than the sight, which is a single pin, target style sight. But other than that, exact same setup. So 71 pounds, I believe, on the draw. It's got the 80% let off mods. I've got a 15-inch front bar with 5 ounces of weight, and I think 11 ounces out the back on a 12-inch back bar. But that is my exact hunting bow. So that's what I'm going to Vegas with. The reason I've been shooting that is because it's what I love to do. I love to go bow hunt, and if I can learn and grow in that bow and become that much more proficient with it, then it's gonna pay dividends this fall when I take it out to hunt mule deer and elk and hopefully antelope and some whitetails. Super excited about the whitetails this year. But yeah, shout out to Matthews. Appreciate those guys. Great company. I think last podcast I talked to Sawyer about the new film that they released with Mark Hayes, who's the engineer over there. That was such a good film. I would encourage you guys, if you haven't watched that, go watch it. I just love what those guys do over at Matthews. I like the brand and I like the bow a lot. So I appreciate those guys sponsoring the podcast. Okay, I'm rambling. So let's dive into packs. Packs packs. So the reason I chose kind of this discussion about packs is I've been getting some questions about them. So if I start getting some DMs and it seems like there's a thread that people are asking similar types of questions, I think it's easier for me to do a podcast and hopefully answer those questions. And, if there's a broader audience out there that's having the similar types of, questions, they're wondering the same things. Hopefully I can reach a wider audience with this type of stuff. So people are asking, I assume that's because the weather's turned, it's getting a little bit better. I know that people are definitely out shed hunting. I've been seeing all the pictures piling in on social media, people picking up big elk sheds, which I'm certainly envious, but it's just a different stage in life. I'm trying to do different things right now, but I am jealous of those guys that are out picking up sheds. It looks really fun. And I think when people start getting out, some of the results start coming back. You're thinking about packs. You're thinking about what's that piece of gear that I need to help me fill this, tag that I've drawn or these plans that I have for the fall. So I think that's the reason why I grabbed my packs right here. I've got a couple of them. I've got a Stone Glacier. I've also got a Kafaru, which I've been using more recently. Got those. I know that I need to probably run those down to the car wash and give them a good once over, just kind of spruce them up. But it is that time of year. Weather's changing. And if you don't have a pack, it's a great time to look into it and get yourself a pack for the fall and start using it. I would say it's like a boot. You want to break that thing in. You want to make sure that it fits you well. You want to know what it carries like with your intended hunt weight. So if you're backpack hunting, maybe 50 to 60 pounds, depending on how many days. If you're day hunting, maybe 25, 30 pounds. But you want to know how that thing rides, if you're going to have any issues with it, if it's going to make any noise. And then also just get those hip belts and the harnesses kind of mold to you. As you start to sweat and work in that backpack, it's going to fit you better over time, which is what I've found. So with that, what am I looking for in a backpack? So I'm going to go ahead and kind of list it out on what I think you ought to be thinking about. One is durability. The reason I say that is I have had packs break. I can think of two experiences. One, I was using a Badlands 4500. I had an elk quarter on my backpack and that frame broke. It was not a fun rest of the trip. It wasn't fun to pack that elk out with a frame that broke. So durability, I want durability in the frame. I want durability in the stitching. The buckles, I have broke buckles, slammed them in a door, but for the most part, I want buckles that are going to, clip in and work and you can cinch down nicely. But really I'm looking at stitching. I'm looking at frame and material. I mean, material, most of these packs that I'm going to talk about today are going to be like a 330D Cordura or a 500D Cordura. They're pretty durable. I haven't had any, holes or tears or anything like that. So I haven't really thought a ton about, durability or made a choice on a pack because of the material in the main body of the pack. But I have put a lot of thought into the frame and then also the suspension and then the stitching. There are packs out there that are notorious for zippers failing. That's something you don't want to have happen. They get dust in them and they kind of, fail. But you want to make sure that the frame is solid, that the stitching is solid, that the harness or the belt is not going to come apart and break on you. Those are super important. I could think of another pack where I was packing a mule deer, one of my best mule deer, actually. I was packing it out and the shoulder harness ripped on the one side where the stitching comes in from, the webbing that goes up to like the foam part, the padded part of the harness. Wasn't fun. I ended up having to tie that off as good as I could and, finish out the trip, but wasn't a good time. You don't want a pack that's not durable. Two, my pack has to have a load shelf. It's got to have a load shelf because I'm packing animals out on my back, and I have packed out animals on the internal portion of the bag. I've done that a number of times. The downfalls of that is obviously if you got a lot of extra gear, you might not have the room The other thing about it is, it's not going to ride as well. So a good load shelf is going to be positioned on the pack so that it supports the weight up over kind of slightly above your hips so that you can center that heavy weight of, a bag of meat or a quarter up above your hips so that it frees that motion so that when you're walking, you're not just being bogged down by dead weight sitting, below your hips. So that's one of the reasons I don't like putting it in the bag. I do really like a load shelf. All load shelves are not created equally. I will say that. I like load shelves that are part of the frame of the pack. I'm not a huge fan. It's doable, but I'm not a huge fan of load shelves that go between the bag and the frame. The reason of that is it feels like if they're not positioned correctly, they can allow the heavy load of, a quarter or meat to kind of sag down and sit lower on that frame than I'd like. But I do need a load shelf. The other thing about a load shelf, some packs have easier load shelves to get to. So they're, much more intuitive. You basically undo a couple clips, pull the bag off the frame, and you just drop the weight of the meat onto that load shelf. Some of them are a little bit harder, a little bit more finicky to work with. I'll touch on those as I get down and talk about individual brands here in a minute, but I do absolutely have to have a load shelf. Third, comfort, and you could say comfort might be, the first one. Probably should be, to be honest. I should have thought that through better when I made this list, but I do need the pack to fit comfortably. So I need good padding in the hip and the shoulder harness. I need it to be adequate so that it's cushioned and that it's cushioned with a lot of weight. I need that to just fit well. It just needs to feel like, second skin, almost like it just molds and goes with your body as you're moving. I do find some packs to be more comfortable than others. And, so part of it's the shape of the frame, part of it's the lumbar pad, the thickness of the lumbar pad. A lot of it has to do with the shape of the hip belt and also the padding in the hip belt, and then also the shoulder harness, and then even the ergonomics of the shoulder harness can aid in the comfort of a pack. But I do want that pack to be comfortable. When you try on a pack, like I said, I would suggest you put 25, 30 pounds in it so that you know what it feels like with real weight. I think it's a huge mistake to just try on, an empty pack and say, oh yeah, this feels comfortable, because you don't really know until you get a lot of weight in it. So comfort's definitely super important. You want the frame to fit you also. So the hip belt needs to fit you. The height of the frame needs to be good for your body composition. So your torso height. And then also most of these packs have shoulder harnesses that are adjustable. So you can kind of move them up or down depending on the length of your torso. But you want to make sure that those are set up for your torso and, that they fit correctly so that it's comfort. So you can compare, apples to apples, if you will. But frame height, you definitely want to make sure. And most of these companies make a couple of different sizes of frames depending on the length of your torso. I'm going to get into how to measure your torso here in a second, but you definitely want the pack to fit well. What else do I have on my list here as I sort down through? I'm looking at my notes. Capacity. So the capacity needs to be, right for what you're trying to do. So picking the size of the pack that you need is probably one of the first decisions. Once you kind of decide, yeah, this pack's comfortable. Most of these pack companies, they make various sizes of bags and configurations, but you really need to think about what capacity you're going to need. And it's a decision. It can really help narrow down your decision making, right? So if you know that you don't need an expedition style backpack that's got 7,000 cubic inches, it'll help you kind of narrow it down. Now, advice on sizing of packs, the capacity. I hear it pretty common. I've heard Brady say it a number of times. I've heard a lot of people say it. They just say, buy the biggest bag there is, and then if you want to do some day hunting, use the compression straps to just compress that thing down. That way it's going to give you enough capacity that if you do want to do a 7 or 8 day backpack hunt, that you can do it, but then you can always day hunt if you just cinch that thing down. I'm going to take an opposite approach. I differ a little bit on my advice on and what I like in a pack on this topic. The reason I do is because I find it annoying to have a bag that is 7,000 cubic inches when I'm trying to day hunt. It just feels like your gear is lost in swimming. It feels like I'm constantly cinching the whole thing down. It just feels like there's too much material. There's too many buckles. It's just annoying to me. I don't like it. My opinion, I suggest that you buy the pack capacity for the type of hunt that you are mostly doing. So if you are a whitetail guy, if you are a day hunter, maybe you like rifle cow elk hunting or mule deer hunting, and you're standing at a base camp like a wall tent and you're going out every day with your backpack. I would much prefer a day hunting backpack. There is one nice thing about most of these companies now is that their frames, whether you're talking about an arc frame from Kifaru or an X Curve from Stone Glacier, the bags are interchangeable on those frames. So you can pull the bag off and you can put a new bag on. So for, an extra, it might be significant. It might be an extra $300 or something like that, but you can buy a different sized bag. And that's honest for me. That's my preference. I would rather have two bags. I would rather have a day hunting setup, which works really well. It's maybe got some more organization to it. And I would like to have a second bag, which is a backpacking style bag, which I'm going to take on, a backpack style archery elk hunt, for example. That's just my preference. I just find those big bags annoying when I'm day hunting. And if you're somebody that does mostly day hunting, my opinion would be to, buy a bag for the bulk of the time that you spend out in the woods hunting, those types of hunts. That's just my take. I think far too many people buy 8,000 cubic inch backpacks, and they might do one or two backpack hunts over a 3 or 4 year stretch that it makes good sense. But day in and day out hunting, they're probably just out day hunting. They might be hiking to a whitetail stand and sitting in it, or they might be, doing a day antelope or mule deer hunt. So I would say be realistic and kind of what style of hunting you're into and the type that you do most often. And I would try to buy a bag that's appropriately sized for that type of hunting. And then if you're kind of middle of the road, I would say a lot of people are probably middle of the road. Maybe they do a weekend hunt where they do 2 nights, overnighters, and then they do a lot of day hunting. Maybe they're not doing a full week-long backpack style hunt. In those cases, there are some packs that are kind of middle of the road, which might be the best fit for most people. And I would say that those are typically those bags that are like 3,000 to 5,000 cubic inches, somewhere in that neighborhood. That's a good size for somebody to do an overnighter, or, if you get on the upper end of that, maybe 4,500 or 5,000 cubic inches, you can do 2 nights, even 3 nights fairly easy. So that might be, a good option. But generally speaking, I would tell people if you're looking at day hunting backpacks, I would probably be looking at 1,500 to 3,000 cubic inches in the actual size and capacity of the bag. For day hunting up to like bivvy hunting, so weekends, I would put those in the 3,000 to maybe 5,000, 5,500 cubic inches. And then backcountry, I'm talking backpack elk hunting, deer hunting, maybe you're out there for a week to 10 days. I would say somewhere in that 5,500, 6,000 to maybe 7,000 plus cubic inches. There are some bags out there that are, 7,900, 8,000 cubic inches. And really that's kind of those options that are built for that style hunting, that week long 10-day backpack living off your back style hunt where you're packing your tent, your sleeping bag, everything that you need to essentially survive out there on a hunt that long. And again, I would just reiterate, to me, I would buy a pack that's appropriately sized for the bulk of the hunt that you're doing. And then if you get to a year where you're like, man, I really want to do a 10-day backpack elk hunt, just get a bag and adapt it to that frame, because I do think that those smaller bags are a lot more user friendly for day style hunting. And again, that's just my opinion. Brady might disagree, but that's kind of where I'm at. Comfort. I'm going to go back to comfort. So I'm kind of skipping around on my notes here. I already kind of mentioned the weight I'm looking for. One thing I pay attention to on the comfort of the pack, I pay real close attention to the lumbar pad and how that fits in my lower back. Some of those lumbar pads are large, so they're like super thick, and they don't necessarily work for the shape of my back. I also don't want one that's really thin. I'm kind of a medium, and the requirement of the cushion in the lumbar pad. But you want to pay attention to that when you get that thing loaded up with weight and you put it on your back. Start with torso. So torso length, I mentioned that. I wanted to talk about how you kind of measure your torso length. So you can start with your head forward, and if you feel back there behind your neck, you're going to feel that bony bump where the slope of your shoulders starts, kind of where it meets your neck. That's going to be your C7 vertebrae. And that's kind of the top of your torso length or your torso measurement. And then if you were to take your hands and put them on your hips, so you kind of put them on your hips like you're, a pissed off elementary school teacher that's mad at your kids. You put your hands on your hips and you kind of got your thumbs facing in there on the back of your back, and you can kind of rest your hands, the webbing of your thumb on the top of your hip bones. That line right there, that imaginary line that goes between your two thumbs, is kind of the bottom portion of your torso length. So what I would do is I would have somebody measure that distance from that C7 vertebrae down to that imaginary line where if you were to rest your hands on your hips, like I just mentioned, that is your torso length. And you can have somebody measure that for you with, like a flexible, cloth tape. And that's going to give you your torso length. Now, most frame companies, most pack companies, they're going to make different frames for different torso lengths. So, for example, Stone Glacier, they have a 22-inch frame, and then I think they also have a 26-inch frame. Kifaru has a 22-inch frame and a 25-inch frame. Initial Ascent also has two frame sizes. Typically, I would say that for the most part, this isn't always the case because people's torsos vary. Some people have really short legs and long torsos, or vice versa. But generally speaking, I would say people that are 5'8" and, well, maybe under 5'8", you're probably looking at that shorter model, maybe that 22-inch model from the various pack companies. Whereas if you're over 5'8", again, it's going to depend on your individual torso length, but you're probably going to want to jump up to that 26 or 25-inch frame height, which is going to give you a better fitting pack. It's going to give you a better angle on your load lifters. It's going to put that frame up above your shoulders a little bit, give you a better angle on your load lifter so that when you suck that thing in, when you got a heavy load, it's going to kind of pick up and hold that weight up off your hips. So super important. Hip belt sizing is also important to consider. Hip belt sizing is more straightforward. Basically, you're going to measure that distance, kind of that same line where I just, mentioned that where if you rested your hands on your hips, you're going to kind of measure that distance around your waist. Hip belts are going to vary. Typically they're going to be like small, medium, large, extra large. And then within those individual belts sizes, they're going to have a variety of sizes of waist. So it might be like 32-inch up to 36-inch. And you want to try to get the hip belt that is the closest, I would say, to your measurement of your waist. One of the issues that I run into quite a bit, people ask, what do I do if I'm in between sizes on a hip belt? So I would tell you that if you're in between sizes, if you're kind of close to the edge, I would tell you to size down. And the reason that is because if you size up, the length of the hip belt, when you get it loaded up with a lot of weight on your back and you cinch those buckles in, you really pull in and cinch that thing to get a good seal on your hips, there's a high likelihood that you're going to bump up against the buckles. You're going to run out of room, essentially, as you pull that slack out of the hip belt. It's going to bump up against those buckles, and you won't have any more room to pull that thing in and support the weight of the pack. Now, in my opinion, like a properly fitted pack, when you've got it fully loaded, you should be supporting about 75%, 80% of the weight of the pack on your hips that should be there in the hip belt. And then the rest of it kind of dispersed up through your shoulders and your shoulder harness. But in my opinion, it rides better, it feels better if you've got the bulk of that weight supported above your hips. And if you don't have enough room to cinch that in because you've sized up on the hip belt, you're going to run out of room and you won't be able to properly support the amount of weight that you need to on your hips and on your hip belt. So think about that. There is the potential that if you're kind of in between sizes and you size down when you get that pack and you try it on, that hip belt, and I've seen it a bunch of times, it's going to sit out further, kind of out away on the edge of your hips. It's going to feel weird. It's going to look weird. And you're going to probably think like, man, this thing doesn't look that comfortable, feel that comfortable because it just doesn't give me that wrap. And that might be the case. I will tell you that once you get that thing loaded up with real weight, you're going to be able to suck that thing in tighter, which is going to, seal on your hips, and you will pull that thing in, tighter. But play with it and just see. Every once in a while, somebody will be right on the cusp and they'll end up jumping up to a bigger size, and it'll still have enough room that they can get a good seal on it. I just always tell people be cautious, because the last thing you want to do is run out of slack or room when you pull that hip belt that you can't get it to seal off because you bump it up against those buckles together on the front. So size down generally if you're kind of on in between sizes. Overall, get your pack sized to you. Spend some time looking at the various resources that are out there, whether it's a YouTube video. Make sure that you take the time when you set up the pack for trying it on that it's sized to you. It's going to tell you a lot about how comfortable it is. I talked a little bit about durability already. Like I said, YKK zippers should be, on that pack. Those are going to do well with dust. They're not going to give you any issues long-term. Generally materials are going to be 500D Cordura or like a 330. I think some of the pack companies use a lighter weight Cordura to save some weight in their packs, but generally speaking, anything that's Cordura is going to, be durable. Frames. So frame materials. It used to be that most of the frames were, like aluminum. Some of the old school stuff, obviously, I'm thinking of right now on the top of my head, but Kuiu came out with a carbon fiber frame. I think they might have been like the first one in our space that came out with a carbon fiber frame. That frame I wasn't in love with. I just didn't think it was that durable nor that comfortable. It felt like it kind of gave carbon fiber a bad name, if you will, within the hunting space, because I think that one just didn't do as well for people as they'd hoped. I think they sold a lot of packs. I just don't know that it was that durable or comfortable. I've seen some pretty horrendous pack outs from folks that were using that frame due to, broken load lifters, or just didn't fit that well. But it felt like for a few years, people kind of stayed away from it. And a lot of the materials, like Kafaru's old frames, were laminate wood portions of it. Stone Glacier, when they came out with their frames, the more recent frames like the X Curve or the Crux, they moved to carbon fiber rod. So that one is still carbon fiber. It's slightly different in that it doesn't have like a frame sheet. But more recently, you've kind of seen this rebirth of carbon fiber frames in the hunting pack space. And if you look at Initial Ascent, their new frames are carbon fiber. I say new, but I think they've been out for probably 4 or 5 years at this point. They've probably made some changes since then, but it still is a carbon fiber weave frame. Kafaru's new Arc frame is carbon fiber. And then let me think. Stone Glacier's, I already mentioned, carbon fiber rod with titanium connectors between those two. If you're talking about the X Curve frame, and then obviously the Crux Evo, which is a straight frame, those are just carbon fiber rods, almost like a carbon fiber arrow, if you will. And then Mystery Ranch. So Mystery Ranch is still using a similar configuration. It's a straight frame where you've got these rods that are sewn internally into individual sleeves, and then those kind of the structure of that, it almost looks like like a high rise, if you will. It gets a little narrower at the top, but it's basically a large rectangular with some supporting pieces that go through the middle. But those are all sewn internally in sleeves, and then the stitching and the webbing that those are sewn into kind of gives that frame the structure. Um, I would say of all the frames, um, this is subjective. Again, the most comfortable frame for me, in my opinion, is the Arc frame from Kafaru. I would say second to that for me would probably be the Stone Glacier X Curve. I've had that frame for a long time and I've used it and really liked it. The frame from Initial Ascent is a comfortable frame. It's, in my opinion, it's not the most comfortable for me, but I know a lot of people that really love it. So frame, again, some subjectivity into it, but you do want to make sure that it's made of good material and it's durable. Load shelf, I already talked a little bit about that. I don't think I have anything to add. Okay, I'll jump down to one I think is interesting. So pack weight. Pack weight, something that I hear kicked around a lot. I used to hear it kicked around a lot. I would say it's become less of a talking point when you're looking at a new pack. So the Bear pack weight, and I think for a while everybody was chasing the lightest weight pack, and I think there's been a shift in that based on the fact that the lightest weight packs just don't carry all that comfortably when you get a lot of weight in them. So where am I at on, Bear pack weight? So I would say most of the packs that I'm considering are going to be in that 5 to maybe 7 pound range, and that's Bear pack with nothing in it. I would not shy away from a pack that weighed 7 pounds, maybe slightly over 7 pounds, if it's comfortable and that it fits well and it's durable and it holds together really well. It's not like if I was buying a new pack, I would say, I'm definitely going with this 5-pounder over here because it's 3 less pounds than this pack over here. 3 pounds is significant. I've just found that I would prefer to take the pack that's the most comfortable, the most durable, that can handle a lot of weight better, and ditch weight from other gear that I'm packing in that. So I can find ways to slim down the rest of my gear to kind of save some weight, but I would rather take the pack that is more comfortable and can handle a lot of weight. So that's something to think about. I think it's less of a discussion than it used to be, but most packs are going to be in that 5 to 7 pound range. I think the lightest of the ones that I've had and looked at that we carry in the shop is going to be the Stone Glacier Crux. Again, that's because it's got those carbon fiber stays that actually fit in kind of an X fashion through the middle of the pack. And then you have 2 vertical stays on the outside. And that pack is super lightweight, and it does carry well. It just doesn't carry as well, in my opinion, as some of the others. Even the X Curve, I think, carries better. I think it's a better weight hauler. So if you get a lot of weight on your back, I think it carries better, for at least for me. And then the Arc frame, I think the Arc frame is super comfortable. I think it carries a lot of weight really well, even though Bear pack weight, those are slightly heavier. Lastly, organization. So this is something I haven't really talked about yet, but depending on the pack that you buy, some packs are full of, bells and whistles. So they've got pockets on the front, they've got pockets internally, they have water bladder pockets internally. They might have, key holders on the inside. Some packs are really just built to have organization features with a lot of different pockets. Some packs are more streamlined, so they're just basically a main compartment tube, and then people are using small, like Sil poly bags as pullouts, is what they're commonly referred to by a lot of folks. But they're basically storing their gear in those and organizing it internally in those pockets, and they're just sticking it in the main compartment of the bag. You kind of got to just decide what type of system you like what works for you. I would say for day hunting, in a lot of ways, I like some organization. That's because I'm not probably packing as an extensive kill kit, probably not as an extensive possibles pouch with like all the bells and whistles, everything that I might need to live off my back for 10 days. So in those cases, I like some organization in a day hunting pack. I can imagine, this year going into the whitetail woods, I'm going to probably want a pack that's got some external pockets so that things are, more organized. So I don't have to pull a bag out of the main frame or the main compartment and unzip that and, try to dig through it to get whatever I need. So I like organization on day packs. When I talk an expedition style pack, a backpack style backpack, I like no bells and whistles. I just want to be able to have a main compartment, put my sleeping bag in it, my pad, my tent, and then the rest of my gear, like my possibles pouch, my kill kit, my headlamp, those kinds of things, my stove system. Typically, I'll not even put it in a pocket, or I'll put it in a like a Sil Poly zip bag so that it's organized, so that when I get to camp at night and I want to make camp, I can just pull that thing out. I know everything that's in it. And then next morning, throw everything back in that, and then just throw that whole thing in the main compartment of the backpack. I don't like a lot of organization and pockets on my backpack style packs, if you will. And that's kind of where I land, but you do need to kind of think about like what works for you. Some people love organization. They love all the stretch pockets on the side. They want a water bladder pocket. They want all the bells and whistles. For me, it just depends on, the style of hunting. And I think for day hunting, I like some organization. For backpack hunting, I don't. I just want to be able to store it in, a separate Sil Poly sack inside the pack. But think about it, because every company makes different bags that have more of that type of thing. And depending on the type of hunter, you might gravitate towards one choice over the other. So with that, let's talk a little bit about individual frames and individual packs. And at the end, I'm going to give you what I think are my favorite options from the companies that I just mentioned and why. So Kifaru, I already brought them up. Their pack that we sell on our website, they sell on their site. The Arc frame, which is carbon fiber. It's a totally carbon fiber frame. It does have some shape to it, kind of with the curvature of your back. The foam that they use in their hip belt and their harness is a density nitrogen enriched foam. They do have moly, which is laser cut on the hip belt, which is nice if you want to attach pockets to your hip belt. The frame does have various load lifter positions, meaning that if you want to increase the height of the load lifter for your torso, you can do that, which is awesome. The torso length is adjustable via some slits that are cut into the frame. You can kind of move that shoulder harness up or down. The load shelf does go between the bag and the frame. There are slits in that carbon fiber frame, which allows you to slightly adjust the position of the load shelf as it goes from the bag to the frame, which is kind of handy. Overall, super durable frame. I really like it. It is slightly more wide at the top. It's a little bit more narrow at the bottom, kind of the shape of your torso if you think about it. Overall, nice frame. Really like it. And it's the pack that I've been using for the last couple of years. A couple frames from Stone Glacier, the Stone Glacier X Curve frame. I would say the biggest difference between it and the Crux, which is their other frame, is the curvature. So the X Curve does have curvature in the frame, kind of to mimic the curve of your back. The stays in that are a solid carbon fiber rod with these titanium connector points. There are two that cross in the middle and then two that sit on the outside in a vertical fashion. That frame does flex well. I feel like it's rigid north to south, so top to bottom, side to side. There is a little bit of torsional flex in it, which is kind of nice. You get that thing loaded up and you're working through the woods. I really like that frame. I bought that X Curve frame when they first launched it back in 2017, I want to say. I've packed a lot of animals out in that pack, and I really like it. I really like Stone Glacier's load shelf on their frames. So the load shelf is attached to the frame itself. So you can actually pull the whole bag off the frame, and you can just use the load shelf if you were just straight packing meat. You're just a meat shuttle, which is kind of nice. I also like the position of it. So ideally for me, I like the load shelf to be 3 to 4 inches up off the base of the hips. I already talked about why that is, but I really like the position of Stone Glacier's frame's load shelf. I like the fact that it's attached straight to the frame. Getting to that load shelf it takes some practice. It's not It's not that hard to get to, but I will say if you're doing it for the first time when you're trying to load an elk quarter in it, it's not the time to do it. You want to be familiar with it, how it works. The other cool thing about Stone Glacier's load shelf is that it's got these long tabs that are on the bucket itself, the actual shelf itself, and you can run those clear to the top of the frame to kind of secure the load to the top and pull it in nice and tight. Once you cinch the bag up and over the load on the load shelf, it does really well. And that's, in my opinion, I think they have the best load shelf. It's not the easiest to get to, but it's fairly easy. I love the position of it, and I love the fact that it's attached to the frame. It's not attached to the bag. So that's kind of the things I like about that Stone Glacier setup. The crux, again, I've already said, but it's a straight frame. It's lightweight. It's kind of their uber lightweight frame because those are hollow carbon fiber rods. They will tell you, when I talked to Lyle and, back when he worked at Stone Glacier, I think he told me at one point that most people should be in the crux, that most people prefer the crux. I'm not going to debate his opinion on that because obviously he worked there and he talked to a lot of customers. I just know that for me, I preferred the X curve. I think the X curve is kind of the heavy duty, weight hauler of the two. And I found it to be more comfortable. Moving down to Initial Ascent's frame, it's called the Integris. It's a triaxial weave carbon composite. I know that they spent a lot of time developing their frame. If you've looked at their packs, it does look different. It's got these like wings on it that kind of pop out the sides. Those, I know a lot of guys that love those wings that kind of pop out to rest a rifle sling on. It just works perfectly for that. If you do a little bit of searching, you'll see guys that are carrying out quarters and bags of meat hanging from those wings. They've obviously tested the durability of it. Their frame is thicker, so the carbon fiber frame is actually quite thick. It's robust. I would not have any concerns with that frame. In terms of durability, it's well thought out. It's super thick. Their harness, I think, is comfortable. It's a little bit wider in the hip belt, which I like. The foam is, comfortable. It's thick enough, but it's not like ultra dense. Some of the packs, like a Mystery Ranch, it feels like the foam in those hip belts are like really thick, like, big cushy couch cushions, if you will. I don't necessarily love that. I want enough cushion, but I don't need it to be like that. Their shoulder harness is adjustable. Nice shoulder harness. I think those guys have done a good job. Their overall pack weight is slightly more. Those frames and the packs, they do tend to weigh a bit more in comparison to a Stone Glacier or even a Kafaru, as I'm thinking about it. But overall, well thought out carbon fiber frame that can support a lot of weight and super durable. So let me drop down. I'm just going to run through and give you some of my favorite packs and why. So I'm going to list them by brand. Some of the favorite packs that I've tried or used over the years. So the Stone Glacier Approach 2800, which I think makes an excellent day pack option. It does have the spotting scope pocket kind of sits on the outside front portion of it. That's a super slim down pack at 2,800 cubic inches. It is purely day hunting with the idea that you're going to pack around a spotting scope, a tripod, your weapon, probably your lunch, maybe a jacket, but not a lot of bells and whistles other than that pocket on the front for the spotting scope. But that is a really nice option for day hunting, and it does have the load shelf built into the frame. So I would take a good look at it. I really like it. The other one I like is the Solo 3600. That pack is big enough that you can do a weekend out of it. You can definitely do overnighters in it with a sleeping bag, small shelter, either a tarp or a bivvy, and your food and your gear, and you can do overnights or weekends in that pack. But it is small enough that you can do day hunting out of it really slick. So I like that pack a lot. The pack that I originally bought from Stone Glacier that I've loved, I still have it. It's actually sitting right here, is the Sky 5900. One of the things I really like about that pack is you've got 5,900 cubic inches, so you can backpack hunt out of it. I don't think you have any issues doing 5 to 7 days out of that thing. I love the front pocket. So you have an external front pocket that sits on it. It's a vertical. It's great for putting your spotting scope in or your rain jacket, any type of gear that you would need quickly at hand. I really love what kind of drew me to that pack that I loved is the opening. So it's got this like beaver tail zipper on the front of that. One of the reasons I love that is I can basically lay that pack down on the frame with the bag facing up, and I just take that horseshoe or beaver tail zipper, zip it around, and fold the top over, and I have access to all of my bag, all my gear that's in it, and I don't have to unpack it from the top to get something that's in the bottom of my pack. So with that beaver tail opening, it makes it really easy to get something from the bottom of your pack without having to completely unpack and repack your bag. So I love the way that that thing opens. Not a lot of bells and whistles as far as like internal pockets. It's mainly just, the external pocket on the beaver tail and then the main compartment. It's about the right size, I think, for kind of that middle of the road. If you're a backpacker, you want to do a weekend, or if you want to do a 5 or 7 day hunt, you can definitely do it at it. And I think that's probably our best selling Stone Glacier backpack in a gear shop. If you are someone that's looking for a expedition style backpack, I would recommend the Sky Guide 7900. It does have some organization to it. It's got external like side pockets, which you can fit a spotting scope. You can fit your various gear in, and it's huge. It's a giant bag. It's going to be suited for 10-day style hunting. But I would take a look at that one. That's a nice option for backpack style expedition hunts. Moving down to Kifaru, I've got 3 on my list that I really like. One being the day hunter option, the Striker XL. I think that's a killer option for day hunts. Not a lot to it other than just the bare essentials for day hunting. The other one I really like from them is the Bedlam. The Bedlam does have a bit of organization. It's got a stretch front pocket. It's got some side pockets. You can add the separate pouches kind of onto the top part of it. I've got it sitting right here, and I actually find that I end up using that pack a lot. I love the fact the zipper compartments it runs all the way down from the side, so I can unzip that and get access to stuff that's in the bottom of my backpack instead of having to unpack it from the top. It does have a spotting scope pocket on the side, which I use, and I like that a lot. It does have lots of compression straps up and down both sides so that you can fit your your trekking poles or your tripod. And I use that front stretch pocket on it a lot. I think it's just over 4,000 cubic inches. So again, it kind of fits that middle of the road option for guys that are doing some backpack hunting, but not, full weeks, and still do some day hunting out of it. I think it's a good option for middle of the road. And then if I were doing backpack hunts, the pack from them that I really like is the Absorca. It's a lighter weight material, not a lot of bells and whistles, external pockets, anything like that. It's basically just the main tube. I like the access to that bag, and it's just a nice expedition style backpack. So those are the 3 for me from Kifaru that I really like. Initial Ascent. So Initial Ascent, I kind of like what they've done, and that I like their naming of their packs. So I'm kind of on this kick right now of just naming products as what they are, so that it's not so hard to remember, like, how big is that thing, or what is that thing that I'm looking at, where the name doesn't give you any detail about it. So I love the fact that Initial Ascent has the 3K, the 5K, the 8K, and then they have a day pack. You can check those out. Again, it's just going to depend on what size you need. The 3K is going to be the better option for day hunts and maybe an overnighter. The 5K, you can probably get 3 to 5 nights, I would say, out of that pack. And then the 8K is obviously their backpack style hunting pack. They do have a day hunter, which is actually pretty cool. It's a top lid with a meat shelf, essentially. So like a bucket that you could fit extra gear in. That's initially what I bought when I bought that Initial Ascent pack. And I actually think it's a super cool pack for day hunting, hauling out quarters, shed hunting. It's awesome, where you only just need enough room in that top lid for like your lunch, maybe some extra gear. Moving down to Mystery Ranch. So Mystery Ranch, they kind of revamped their Metcalf line. So they've got the Metcalf 50, the Metcalf 75, the Metcalf 100. Obviously, those numbers are associated to the liters. So you got 50 liter, 75 liter, and 100 liter. Again, those are just going to be size differences. I like the Metcalf pack. They really did drop a lot of weight in this last version. I don't necessarily love the fact that it's not super easy to get into. The frame on that pack is comfortable. I don't think that the meat shelf carries weight as well as some of the other options out there. I will say Mystery Ranch has the ease of getting to the meat shelf on lock. They've got that figured out. If you're looking for a pack that is real intuitive and easy to use, I would say look at the Mystery Ranch, because those ones are super simple to get to. There's almost no explaining needed. Those are really, really handy to get to. They've got that figured out for sure. I should go back and mention, so Kifaru, I love their frame. I love their packs. I love everything that they're doing. I'm not a huge fan of the meat shelf going between the bag and the frame, and it's not the most easy to use, primarily with getting that secured from the top of the bag to the frame. Once you have meat loaded on the shelf, it's not impossible. You can definitely do it. You are going to have to do some homework and figure out how to use that before you get out into the field and you have an elk on the ground or a deer on the ground. You want to do your homework prior to that. It works. It works well. It just doesn't, in my opinion, work as well as the Stone Glacier. Which is probably a good time for me to talk about maybe some pros and cons. This is a question I just recently got. I like the frame on the Kifaru better. I think it's more comfortable. I like the hip belt. I like the shoulder harness. I think generally when I am hiking around hunting, which is 90% of the time, it's a more comfortable pack, in my opinion. The Stone Glacier, obviously lighter bare pack weight, which is nice to an extent. I don't think that their hip belt nor their shoulder harness, the padding in that, the width of their hip belt, I don't think it's as comfortable. The one advantage I think they have is that the position of the load shelf, the ease of the load shelf, and the way that the load shelf works, I think is slightly better. Initial ascent, I think they make a really nice, super durable pack. Brady loves it. There's a lot of people that love their packs. I know in talking to Dennis, originally when he designed that pack, it was because he was having lower back problems, and he built a pack with a lumbar support system frame that would kind of address some of the issues that he was dealing with. So I think if you have a bad lower back, it definitely would be worth looking at, and I think it'd be worth looking at anyway. I really like those guys over at Initial Scent. I think they've done an awesome job. And again, this is just like my personal honest take. It's a nice pack. It's not my fave in comparison to, the Kifaru. And again, it's just personal preference. Super durable. I would say that probably their packs are the most durable. So if you're looking for like a real durable, heavy, hardy pack, that's probably it. They really put a lot of emphasis on that. These are always hard because you want to try to give your honest opinion, but I also have good friends at each one of these companies, so hopefully I don't piss anybody off. This is just my personal honest take. Jumping down to Mystery Ranch. So Mystery Ranch packs, I think, are a good value for what you get. I do not think that they are the most durable, nor the most comfortable, nor do I think their load shelf is the perfect position to carry a lot of weight really well. I do think they do an awesome job at building packs that have organization. So if you're a guy that likes organization, you might take a look at a pack like the Sawtooth 45 or the Beartooth 80. Those have a lot of internal pockets. They kind of open like a duffel bag, which is handy. They do have some unique packs like the Pop-Up 30, the Pop-Up 40. Those are more day hunting style backpacks where the height of the frame is adjustable, so that if you get an animal and you want to put those quarters on those meat shelves, you can actually increase the height of the frame to help change the angle of the load lifters, kind of secure the weight higher up your back. those are nice little day hunting backpacks with that option to, change the frame height. That's not a pack that I would want to spend, days on end packing a lot of weight with, if I'm honest. But for what they are, they're pretty cool. And generally speaking, like I said, if you're looking for a pack that is slightly less money, but you still get really good value, good wear and tear out of it, I think they make a great pack. If it were up to me and, I was picking a pack to pack a lot of weight out of, it wouldn't be a Mystery Ranch. It would probably be either the Stone Glacier or the Kafaru, or even, the Initial Sin, if that pack fit you well and you liked it. So that's podcast for the week. Hopefully I gave you guys some ideas on what you can think about in regards to a pack. Some of the times when I do one of these solo, I get to the end of it and I think, man, I think I just did an hour of pure rambling, and I hope I don't know that I gave anybody any real value, but some of that's obviously opinion and subjective. I have used these a lot, and it is my personal take. I've packed a lot of animals out in all these packs, and if my opinion means anything to you, you can take it for what it is. I do think now is a good time of year to get yourself into a new pack. If you've had a pack that you like, it's a good time to dig that thing out and clean it up really good. Go through the buckles, go through the straps. I know that for me, in years past, I've robbed a buckle from one pack to take to another. And then when I've gone back to that original pack and I've been out in the field, I've been upset with myself that, I didn't have a buckle that I needed. So it's a good time to go through all the buckles, all the straps, make sure they work on your pack and clean it out. And it's always a good thing to do a pack fitting. So your body changes. If you're like me, maybe you gained a few pounds, but it's good to go through and do a pack fitting, kind of reevaluate the way that pack feels with some weight in it, make some changes to the torso length and the position of the load lifters, and just see how it feels. The last thing that you want to do is get out into the field in the fall on a great tag and just find that your pack's not quite fitting and functioning like you want it to. So now's a good time to do that. If you got questions that are more specific that I have not answered, reach out to me. I'd be happy to answer those questions for you. If you like the podcast, I would love it if you would leave me a review. I hopped on the other day and it looks like people have been leaving reviews, which is really cool. You guys are super generous. You've left me some 5-star reviews, which I appreciate. But if you like the podcast, leave me a review. That would help me. So with that, that's the podcast for the week. I'll be back next week. I'll give you an update on how Vegas went. Hopefully I go down there and just shoot straight 300s, even though I've never done that, but you never know, right? That's the plan. So with that, I'm out.